Hello, friends. Good January afternoon to you. My name's Dan Nelson. Maybe you know that. And I promised a couple days ago that I would do a painting of a snow scene, which I'm going to do. Happy to do. Of course, it's a painting I hope it will sell. Maybe one of you will buy it. I am going to do a painting of this scene. I took this picture in Michigan, near where my parents lived. And ironically, I've already done a painting of this scene. There's the photograph, and there's a painting, but it's a painting I did about 10 years ago. So for me, in my journey, that means quite a lot of water or snow under the bridge, as the case may be. And I'm quite a different artist than I was at that time. I'm probably more than 10 years ago. I went through a number of my own photographs, and I just Googled images online as well, found a whole bunch of nice snow scenes, but eventually decided to go with a picture that I had taken myself. There's great advantage in painting from one of your own photographs, and I'm not talking here about copyright infringement. I'm talking about artistically. If you took the picture, even if it was 10 or 12 years ago, when I look at this print, I get more information out of this scene. You can see what I'm looking at up there. I've got it on my subject holder. I get more information out of this image than you do because I took the picture. So as soon as I look at this, whoosh, it takes me back 12 years or whenever it was to standing there on that snow-covered road. I feel the distance, I feel the space, I feel the atmosphere, I feel what this scene is like. You just get the picture. That's all you get. I get a whole lot more. So that's why you should paint from your own photographs whenever possible, because you get so much more information from your own photographs. Okay? Let me tell you something that I'm going to do that I just did a little while ago, and I'm going to get you in on it. Sometimes, now I don't do this very often, but I find it very helpful, especially now I don't feel uninspired. Is that the word? I don't feel flat-footed. I don't feel dull. I don't feel like I need a boost today, but sometimes I do and sometimes you do. So here's one of the tricks that I have found to help me. And forgive me, I'm going to pick up your camera and take you on a wild ride. You get to see a little bit more of our house here. And here is, I'm on my computer, my monitor. And sorry, I'm shaking you all over. I hope that'll end shortly. Here's what I do. In this case, I did a Google search for John F. Carlson images. And I clicked on some of his snow. So I'm looking at his winter paintings. Get it? Just looking at his winter paintings and absorbing things, absorbing inspiration. Looking at technique, looking at how he treated. In my estimation, no famous person has ever surpassed John Carlson's rendering of trees. And you see a lot of that in these winter scenes. Okay, so that's John Carlson. Then I went quickly to another one of my heroes, Tibor Nagy, N-A-G-Y, and looked at some of his snow scenes. That one's not a snow scene. Neither is that one. Maybe that one is. Tibor Nagy. Then again, another one of my heroes, Richard Schmid, and just looked and absorbed it, feeling, technique, how he handled snow, how he treated. Man, Richard Schmid is one of those just sickeningly good painters. That's about the highest compliment. That's about the highest compliment I can pay. He is so good, it just makes you sick. And I'm being facetious, of course, but okay. Now here's another one on the other hand, another one of my heroes. Anybody want to know? Anybody want to guess? Maybe you can see his name over there. Who is this? We just went back about 70 years. Okay, his name is Maxfield Parrish, and his painting technique very different from the first three we looked at, Carlson, Schmid, and Nagy. Very different technique, but a fabulous artist, very different. Anyway, there's him. Okay, here's a mystery guest, just for some of you. I also pulled up this one. Anybody want to guess who that painting is by? I'm showing you this one. It's a good painting. It's a good snow scene. And I'm picking, okay, let's go back to real life now. I'm picking on that one in particular because I want to help some of you with the care and feeding of your soul. That last painting was by Thomas Kincaid. And I do that partly because I know some of you who fancy yourself as serious artists despise. You've been taught, you've been trained, you've been conditioned to turn up your nose anytime somebody says Thomas Kincaid or any number, or some people do the same thing with Norman Rockwell. And I would just encourage you not to take on the persona and the identity of a snob. A snob is someone who identifies themselves by what they despise. Not a good way to go through life. I'm getting really preachy here, I know, but somebody maybe out there needed to hear that. You're cutting off your own progress if you choose to despise people. You can learn, unless you're better than Thomas Kincaid, which not very many of you are. Nobody watching this is better than him, me either. Unless you're better than him, you can learn something from him. So don't turn up your nose. Don't follow your fellow artists who, by the way, have inferiority complexes. That's the main reason for becoming a snob, is because you're insecure about yourself. So then you decide to make your modus operandi despising other people. Anyway, I really am sounding preachy now, so I'll stop. Let's get now to, here is, again, the photograph that I'm going to paint from. And I'm going to do my best to do the best. I'm not going to copy any of those people I just showed you. Thomas Kincaid, Tibor Nagy, Richard Schmid, John Carlson. I'm not going to copy any of them, but I'm really fired up to do a good winter scene. I'm going to hope to do my best winter scene. Okay, here we go. I've got some big brushes, dipping in water. We're starting with acrylics. And I'm looking, if you've been following me for a while, I'm looking for counterpoint at this point. I want to make some marks on this canvas that are not, what's the word, are not indicative, reflective, are not realistic, but in fact are actually counter to the image that is there. I want these marks right here to be fun, bold, abstract. As I say often, if I got run over by a Mack truck right now, I would like, as they peeled my poor dead body off the pavement, I would like them to say, well, doggone, he had a good painting going when he went. So that's what I want them to say. They can't tell what it is, but it looks good. Look good is the main point. Okay, and I'm going to come in here with some very all that's yellow and orange and tiny bit of red. I'm actually want to come in here with a little bit of purple or violet. Violent violet, how about that? Not too much. I don't want it to compete. Yeah, the abstract lines. I think this is the latest in my journey of the last couple of years. My technique. Unlike, if I may say, one interesting. I just said a little while ago that Richard Schmid is a sickeningly good painter. One of the ironic, funny things I find about him, he has one of his websites is organized by decades, and you could say, Richard Schmid in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 21st century. One of the funny things to me is that his paintings look the same. I may be very wrong, I may be just not looking carefully enough, but they look very much the same all through those decades, which is amazing to me. you know, would to God I could paint as bad as he painted in the 70s. But it's very funny to me that he has stayed so consistent in his technique. Who knows? I don't have an answer for that. It's just like, okay, that's just not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not trying to do that. In fact, I'm, you know, on a conscious journey, not only to become a better painter, but to change my painting technique as necessary in order to be a better painter. So the latest change for me has been this kind of thing. This starting out with a big, broad, bold swoosh of abstract shapes that has virtually nothing to do with the image, except that it's counterpoint, counterbalanced to the image. It's opposite of the image in a sense. In this case, opposite color perhaps, because I think this painting is going to be, has a lot of cools in it. I don't know if it's going to be a cool painting, but or not. We tend to think of winter scenes as being cool, don't we? But I just showed you and me both. I just showed us a bunch of winter paintings done by really good artists, many of which were not cold at all, but were quite warm in tone. So there you go. Don't know. But I'm starting off with the assumption that, yes, this will probably be a cool palette when I'm done. So that's why I started with warm, because I expect it to be cool. And if this is the first time you've watched me, you're going, well, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I know. So there's a fence. Okay. You can't quite see my reference, can you? It's up there above my easel. See? There's a row of fence posts going straight across this photograph, and I'm going to do one better by making my fence go at an angle. It'll be a much more pleasant mark here. As you could probably imagine, painting an old barn and so forth like this is not a difficult drawing. I mean, for those of you who understand or can do perspective drawing, this is a pretty easy subject matter. For those of you, by the way, who, if you've studied perspective and you still can't do it, starting about 3 years ago, I changed my tune when it comes to perspective. I say, if you've studied it once or twice, you've read a book, you've watched a DVD, you've attended a class, you've given it the old college try, and you still just deep in your being, you don't savvy, you don't understand linear perspective. If that's you, then don't try anymore. Don't try. Instead, learn to compensate. Learn other tricks for rendering things that in perspective. Don't try. Now, this doesn't count if you're a young person because you haven't given it a good enough try yet. But if you're a, middle-aged person, and the reason I say all that is because I have taught perspective many times. You can't believe how well I taught it. I'm being facetious. I'm being humorous. I hope you understand that. And I have yet, among my students, hundreds of students, I have yet to see a light bulb come on. That is, if somebody doesn't really get it, and I teach and teach and teach, and anybody teaches, and then they go, oh, now I get it, have never seen that happen. So I've pretty much concluded that if you don't get it, you're just not going to get it, and quit wasting your time. Instead, learn to compensate, cope, and spend your time learning to cope instead of trying to learn to do something that your brain is just not going to do. Again, if you're a young person, that does not apply to you because you have to give it a good shot before you're allowed to throw in the towel. So what you've seen me doing all this time while I've been blabbing is drawing with long-handled brushes, and now drawing with pencils. Again, that's one of the recent developments about the last year and a half. I've started drawing with pencils in my oil paintings. This is not like a traditional, forgive me, I say this all the time. If you're a regular, you're tired of hearing me say it, but if you're a newcomer, you need, what I'm doing right now with these pencils, they're grease pencils. This is not parallel, comparable, equal to what traditional oil painters have done for centuries, which is do a charcoal sketch underneath their drawing. This is not that. The reason is when those people do a charcoal sketch, they do not expect or want their charcoal lines to show in the final product. Quite on the other hand, first of all, I'm using grease pencils, not charcoal pencils, and I most certainly do, yes, want these images to be a part of the final product. It's a very different attitude. And the lines that I'm making are only partly for realism or similitude. They're much more about marks and texture than they are similitude. Although, of course, at the moment, yes, I am certainly using them to draw the image. Now, the reason I'm doing all this drawing right now is because I want my those initial swooshes of abstract color, I want those to dry and become permanent or impervious. If I were to do something on top of them right now, all of this is still wet, it would just mush together with what I put on top. And instead of two interesting glazes laid on top of each other, I would just get one neutral color glaze. So I've got to wait for that to dry. So while I'm waiting for it to dry, I'm going ahead and doing some drawing. Looking, of course, a great deal at the photograph, as you can imagine, as you probably know, though, not copying the photograph. It's there to give me inspiration. It's there to make me do things I would not have done if it wasn't there. Because I can paint out of my head. I can paint a farm scene out of my head. Beginners, I want to say, beginners paint out of their head, and sometimes feel like they're brilliant for doing so. Man, I don't want to burst your bubble, but no. What the photograph does, it makes me think of things that I would not have thought of if I were painting out of my head. Does that make sense? What's in your head is very limited. So the photograph breaks me out of some of my own limitations. But I'm about done. I've got all the drawing done I need. Oh, by the way, yes, somebody mentioned the other day, thank you, that if you try this technique, be careful. This pencil these lines will activate when you put water on top of them. So, let me see, do I have a piece of scrap paper here? Hang on just a second, I think I do. I want to show you something. I want to show you a bad drawing technique. Okay, I've got an envelope. This will have to do. If you're, like, let's say you're drawing this fence post right here. Some people have very bad drawing habits, and they'll do something like this. Come on, come on, come on. They'll do something, when they're drawing a fence post, they'll do something like this. Okay, if you're in the habit of doing that, brushy, 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 I call it, except this time it's with a pencil, so it's scratchy, scratchy, scratchy kind of drawing. That is bad drawing. Do not do that. That is almost always bad drawing. Plus, now you've put so much charcoal, or not charcoal, grease pencil on your canvas that when you come back with water, that's going to turn into an ugly gray mess. So use good drawing technique here. You always said use reference. Good, good, good. Yes, observation is the key. Good job. Okay, I'm going to take a real quick break right here because I need this to dry, and I'll be back. Leave the Thank you, Edward. I am trying. Edward is one of my regulars, and I've told you people to help me. Hello from Morocco. Good to have you. Yes, leave these colors, Edward. I'm hearing you, man. I'm going to try to do it. Okay, quick break while these dry, and I'll be back in just a Bad mom. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back and joining me. I'm assuming that you saw the first part of this broadcast where I'm starting a winter scene. I'm going to continue. I gave it much thought. Well, by the way, I used a, okay, quick technical tip. I didn't use a hair dryer. This is not a hair dryer. Woe be to the person that picks this up and blows it at their head. It's a heat gun. I don't know what temperature it does. Oh, exceeds 400 degrees right there. So you burn the hair off your head. Anyway, I like using a heat gun instead of a hair dryer because it's faster and it's quieter. And I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't need any extra noise happening in my life. Okay, so while I was drawing, I was thinking, what am I going to do next? And I've decided I'm going to do a little bit of blue, but not too much. First of all, I don't want to obliterate all the beautiful stuff that happened a little while ago with this big wild swoosh that I made. Now, by the way, I like drips, but I suspect that some of those drips right there that are happening right there, I am going to get rid of because I don't want that much blue coming down. So here's how I'm going to get rid of it. I'm just going to spray it. I could pick up a rag if I want to, but this way I get a more natural fading of that drip. Now, I like drips, I just don't like all drips. Fair enough? Why do I like drips? I think it's because when you see drips in a painting, you get the impression that the painting was done with speed, boldness, confidence, all of which, of course, is exactly correct and true. So I like the feeling that it gives a painting. I've had over the years, I've had several people ask me to come back and fix drips on painting. And I usually roll my eyes very much when I say that. And I also make quite a mental note never to paint for those people again. Anyway. So no, do not ask me to, the drips are on purpose. They're not a mistake, so don't ask me to come fix them. Nobody watching this video would make that mistake. Now I am using, actually here, a little napkin. That's a serviette for you Canadians to wipe off some of those. Okay, now without waiting for that to drip, without waiting for that to dry, I meant to say, I'm going to pick up a couple brushes and start doing some white. Now, normally, I like to wait for each layer to dry before I proceed to the next layer. But in this case, I'm okay with painting into wet paint because this white is going to pick up, if it picks up anything, it's going to pick up blue paint. And I'm actually okay with that. And then create an opaque pale blue, if you follow me. And I am okay with that happening. This painting, again, is going to be a great, a good, I shouldn't say great, sounds like I'm a great teacher. I don't mean by that. What I mean, it's a good example of how I paint trees. I am, okay, I talked about being a snob a while ago and how bad that is. Okay, I'm going to break my own rule for a minute. I'm a real tree snob. I don't really literally mean that. I don't identify myself by what I despise. But it does irritate me when I see trees poorly painted. Years ago, I made a list of 10 biggest mistakes. 10 biggest mistakes made in landscape painting. So like David Letterman, countdown, top 10 list. And the number one mistake in my book is painting cliches. That is to say, painting Bob Ross style. And don't get me wrong, I love Bob Ross and his program. But as an artist, you do not want to be imitating his style of painting, the little mountain stream with the deer in the mountain and the cloud and the whatever. Now, a lot of people disagree with me about that, but they're all called beginners. And they're called starving artists, mostly. unless they're teaching other people. Anyway, never mind, I'm falling down a rabbit hole to stop myself. So the number one mistake made in landscape painting is painting, in my humble opinion, is painting cliches. But all that is to say, the number two mistake made in landscape painting is stick-ish trees. And maybe I'll take a minute someday and just do a Google search for landscape painting, and we'll pull up the images together, and I'll show you painting after painting after painting after painting where the artist didn't know how to paint trees, and they are stick-ish. That is to say, they have like 150 branches or something like that. When, as I like to say, when in actuality, the tree they're trying to paint actually has more like 150,000 branches. So they missed it by roughly 1,000-fold. Okay, so this painting's going to be a good, and the short answer, don't get too dotty. That's right. Thank you, Toby. Toby made up that term. Sky holes poorly done becomes sky dots. I think that was you, Toby, right? Am I got that right? You're exactly right. Was I getting there? Was I getting there, Toby? Was I getting dotty? I might have been. Okay, here's a real quick. I'm going to pick up a dry brush, chip brush. I was going to do this anyway, I promise, Toby. Bird holes. That's right. I've got the best audience in the world. You guys are too much. I love it. Thank you for helping me. Okay, so the way to do trees, the single word answer is layers, stages, phases. Layer, 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 layer. Layer, 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 layer is what I'm trying to say. That's how you do good trees, and that's not all, but that's a first step. Stick-ish trees are the product of people trying to paint trees, if you will, all at once. Now, well, there is a fine line. Thank you. I think I fixed it by smearing it, didn't I? Man, you guys are great. I'm going to have to sign all of your names on the back of all my paintings. Painting by Dan Nelson with assistance from Heather, Toby, Edward, Bobo. The list goes on. All of the energy, as you can probably already tell, let me let you see the whole canvas. All of the energy in this canvas is going to be up here. This is just, it may be almost finished, just as it is, but we'll see. We don't know that for sure. We'll find out together as we proceed. But, and as Edward warned me a little while ago, be careful not to lose that color. He was talking about don't lose that initial swoosh, that abstract swoosh that I put down at the very beginning, and because that's exactly right. That's right. That's where I'm at with my journey right now. Is I put down those marks, and too often I end up covering up too much. So I'm very, very intentional. In fact, a couple weeks ago, right, were you with me? I did the Statue of Liberty one day and came back 2 days later and did it again because I wasn't happy with it. And the second one was much better than the first. Yeah, you deserve what, a cut on a percentage on the sale price. Is that what that was? Yeah, probably. Good luck with that. I didn't get that whole comment. Sorry, whoever saw that, but yeah, you deserve something. I appreciate it. This is my first layer of white, and it almost certainly is not going to be my last. In the acrylic phase I'm talking about. It's the first layer of white, but I'm going to be doing probably several white stages. I'm going to do, again, same thing. Soften some of these white edges by just smearing them, just like that. I do that with a dry brush. It works with a wet brush, but it works differently, of course. Now, let's pick up a bigger brush and do some larger white areas. Just about ready for my second break here while I wait for this, everything that's here to dry. Don't know if you've heard me say this yet. If you follow me, you've heard me, but let me say it for you newcomers. When you're painting, underpainting, and of course for me, everything I do is underpainting until the very last layer. Yes, lollipop flavor paint. I go along with that. Everything I do in the underpainting stage is okay if it's a little bit messy, a little bit off, a little bit inaccurate. Now that's really hard to tell people because the problem most of us have is not inaccuracy, it's accuracy in drawing. But some degree of inaccuracy is actually beneficial in the underpainting, so that when you come back with the final layer of opaque highlights, you correct everything, correct all the drawing mistakes, then it actually is good if some of the underpainting is slightly off. You get a much more interesting interplay of line, shape, shadow, so forth. The sun's coming, by the way, I'm changing, let me show you the photograph again. The sun is fairly high in the sky, I think an angle about like this when I took this picture, but I want to make the angle considerably steeper, okay? So I'm not following the exact lighting that is on that photograph. And if the sun is coming from this way, I'm trying to think, is the shadow going to hit the front, the near side of this wall or the back side? I think it's going to hit the near side. So I'm going to make the far, I don't know if you can even tell what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, here's a wall right, at an angle, and there's a shadow of the barn. Is the shadow going to hit this? In other words, I don't want it to hit the whole wall, I don't think. Okay, I'm talking you into confusion, so I'll stop there. Okay, I'm going to stop there, take a little break, let that dry, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks again. Welcome back. Here we go. Oh, I just missed a comment. The downfall of the artist's problem. That was good, but I missed it. Please send that again if you're still watching. Okay, welcome back, and again, forgive me for a nagging cough that's still hanging on. Had time for lunch there, by the way. Thank you very much. Looking at this painting, and of course, trying to decide where to go from here. Right now, I'm picking up magenta, red, and a little bit of orange. And doggone it, a little bit of brown. That's unusual. Unusual for me is brown, really, in the underpainting. And more water on my favorite brushes, which are chip brushes. I'm doing a couple of things here. One is I'm trying to more accurately reflect the orange-red cast of these trees and the grass here. So the color that I just put down is not completely fictitious, although it wouldn't disturb me a great deal even if it were. But I am actually looking at my reference a little bit. And one of my thoughts is to reinvigorate or re-accentuate the initial orange splash, abstract shape that I did at the very beginning of this painting. Again, when we're finished broadcasting, you can go back and watch me to the beginning if you want, if you missed that part. Okay, I think I like that. It's always a good feeling. And if it sounds like I don't know what I'm doing, of course, in a way that's exactly correct. I have a question now. Do I want all of those drips? I might. I'm thinking though. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave them. Okay, and I've also decided before I did that last splash of red, I thought, yeah, and you know what I could probably do is go directly to a layer of white. So this would be my second white layer without waiting for that to dry, which means, of course, that the white that I put on here now is going to pick up a little bit of that red paint and create a sort of a pale pinkish color. So I have to decide, do I want that? If I don't, then I better wait for this to dry. But I've decided, no, I think, you know, it's unusual for me to have pale opaque pink on my paintings. I've decided this one, no, I can see that working. So I am proceeding. Throw caution to the wind, so to speak. And here we go again with the old sky holes again. Sky holes, which my wonderful watchers have ingeniously renamed, if done poorly, as sky dots. If you do sky holes poorly, they become sky dots. And woe be unto you if you paint sky dots. Or bird dots, somebody else called them. Yes, we do not want bird dots in our trees. Yeah, I guess I'll keep the horse. There's a horse right here. And have him sketched in loosely, and I was actually debating taking him out for a second there, but nah. He made one cut anyway, so we'll see if he ends up in the final. He or she. I cannot tell at this distance. Now, I'm going to do a very, very familiar thing. When I do these, this white is rather hard-edged, so we often get a pleasant effect if you drag a brush quickly with boldness and quickness. You drag it through wet paint, get a real nice effect. Does not work if you drag it slowly. It must be done quickly to achieve that nice feel, otherwise it takes on a overworked feel. again, my perhaps biggest characteristic, the single greatest characteristic, if you had to describe Dan Nelson's painting technique in one word, what would it be? I think the word would be transparent. Layers of transparent color. Now, in this case, of course, interspersed with layers of opaque white. But if you just restrict yourself to discussing the color, all the colors on the canvas so far are transparent. All the colors on the canvas are transparent, and that will continue to be the case right up until the last two steps or phases, last two steps of the painting process. Everything will be transparent. I like transparent colors. In fact, everybody likes transparent colors. They're just not everybody's not necessarily aware of that reality. They don't realize it. Oh, what I like is transparent colors. That's what gives the paintings of the old masters, when you go into the Renaissance, you know, Rembrandt section of the museum, Peter Paul Rubens, and so on and so on and so on and so forth, why their paintings glow. It's because they were rendered largely with layers of transparent color. Same thing with Bouguereau, William Bouguereau, French, 1890s. Transparent colors reach out and slap our retina with joy where opaque colors don't. Again, I'm going to rub my brush through. I just hit my phone with a brush full of wet. Oh, boy, that's funny. And now I did something funny to my camera that I don't like. I'll have to fix it later. Dangerous business is painting. A little bit more white, and then I'm going to take another quick break. I'll hit this with a heat gun, and I can't have a bowl shape here, so this is even go that way. Yeah, I guess it's going to be this way. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in just a few minutes after this is done. Thank you, Toby. I'll try not to cover up that orange swoosh. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, I think I'm going to do now some blue. Pretty surprising that I'm this far into a snow scene and I've done very little blue. I'm going to rectify that at least a little bit right here. That was ultramarine blue. Now let's do a little bit of fatal on my brush. Too much. And I'm wishing now that instead of doing straight water, I wish I had been using acrylic medium to thin this down. Too late now. I won't interrupt myself to do that. But often if you want to glaze it's very, very thin, it's better to use a medium instead of water. It's more transparent, it's more even, and of course it's stable if you use a medium. When you use this much water, it's not very stable. This will be disturbable by subsequent layers, which is not usually, of course, what you want. I think think that's all right though, and I'm going to now pick up a rag and just lift out a few bits here and there. You can't do much negative painting with acrylics. Very little. It has to be done very quickly. It's a technique that is very pertinent to oil painting, but not so much acrylics, because you just don't get that much working time unless you use them open acrylics that stay workable for a while. And I absolutely don't want that kind of acrylics for the way I work. I want it to dry fast. But right now I'm just doing a little bit of wiping before it dries. Yeah. Okay, now a little bit, let's do some more drawing with brushes. I'm looking for right-handed brushes. I'm actually going to use some brown again. I hesitate to use brown unless I'm really going after a sepia type feeling in a painting, because of course brown is sort of an anti-color, if you will, like black or gray. But there are times that it's just like, no, brown's the right thing to do right here. So, I'm liking the way the painting is feeling. The biggest weakness about it right now is that there's not enough contrast, not enough pop up here. It's all pretty pastel-y. And pastel-y is not, sounds like a good Italian restaurant, but it is not a good thing in the painting world, in my opinion. So let's get some darkness in here. I'm going to pick up some purple now on these without cleaning my brushes, so it's purple and brown. And let's get some of the major tree. I've already got several of them hinted at. By the way, the trees in this photograph, let me show it to you again. The trees in this photograph are quite charming, quite nice. See, that goes off at an angle. These are not the kind of trees probably that you would paint if you were painting out of your head. Does that make sense? You'd make them a lot more typical, and it is in fact that the non-typicalness of those trees is part of the charm of this scene. I just did a telephone pole there, by the way, because again I saw in the photograph, I went, oh, there's a telephone pole there. Now I moved it over, but there again, you know, would I have thought about putting a telephone pole there if it hadn't been in the photograph? I'm not sure. I mean, I might have. I'm talking here about the value of painting from reference and not going for the lazy way out of painting out of your head. Now, there's always, oh man, I could go on and on. Of course, there's always some aspects of the painting that are, in fact, I think probably every painting I've ever done. Oh, no, I did a copy of a William Bouguereau one time. None of that was on my head. I was going to say, okay, that doesn't count. Every painting I've ever done had elements of it, details were out of my head. But generally speaking, we look at reference, we look at, sorry, I know I'm in your way here. We look at reference, either en plein air or photographs, either one, to give it, to jar us out of what's in our head. Never mind, I'm not going to get down any more fired up than that. There is a horse. He's been ignored for a long time. Let's, not a high, right now, in my first sketch, I had a horse with his head held high. That is not the kind of horse I want here out on the farm. This is just a plain old American farm workhorse. It's not a racehorse. So let's get his head down there. The next thing I'm going to do after this layer of dark-ish stuff. The next layer I'm going to do is going to be white highlights again. And then I will probably switch over to oils. So some of the things I'm thinking about right now are, one, if I got my darks dark enough, and the answer is not quite. It needs to be close. It doesn't have to be fully dark enough. Wait a minute. Do I want this? Do I want one of these fence posts leaning at least a little bit? Yeah, not straight up, I don't think. And by the way, I'm not gonna I want a gap in the fence right here. Just a little psychological trick. Provides a path for the viewer, an entree. As you know, in a scene like this, it is not critical that I don't have to put every tree, and even the buildings do not need to be highly representational of the photograph. So I can move things around a great deal. It's part of the reason why doing a landscape like this is I think, so much easier than a portrait, because in a portrait you have to capture a likeness, at least what I call real portraiture, not the modern silly junk where they, not a Picasso portrait. Anyway, so. Be sure to go around the edge so I don't have to frame the painting. Okay, I think that's okay. And I can proceed, I think, from there straight to white. So this painting, the title of this is doing a winter scene. It may be that the single biggest difference, maybe, between this doing a winter snow scene and a non-snow scene is that I'm doing more layers of white. So this is my third layer of white, which is quite unusual. 2 layers of white is pretty typical. Sometimes, maybe about 30% of the time, I just have one. In the acrylic phase, I only have 1 layer of white. 2 is probably a little more typical. 3, quite rare. So that's probably because it's a snow scene. White is playing a bigger role. Now, at some point in every painting, and it's usually in the acrylic stage, I like to have an aha moment. I like to have a moment in the painting process where all of a sudden, and it always has to do with play of light, all of a sudden the play of light thing really, really kicks in, and I go, and every viewer would go, aha, there we go. And I haven't quite had that yet in this painting. I'm hoping that it will happen actually with this stage, this phase right here, that I'll get a like, oh, there we go. Now it's turning into a painting. Up until now, it's just been a picture. It might be happening right now. We'll see. It is definitely getting better. I don't know if I'd go all the way to an aha moment yet. Yeah, getting there, getting there. I won't despair. I'm actually quite far from despair, thank goodness, at the moment, but very often I'll get the feeling all of a sudden like, oh yes, this is going to be a good painting. I certainly want that feeling, but you can't make it happen. You just has to let it happen, and I haven't quite had that happen yet on this painting. I'm close. Very close. When in doubt, scratch. Energy here. Not here, not here, not here. Energy here. I'm saying to myself. Okay, how about this? I've been a little ambivalent. I'm still ambivalent, I guess, about the exact value of this roof. Is the sun hitting it or not? And I think I'm switching it right now from not to yes, the sun is hitting it. If it's hitting that one, it's probably hitting this one. Yeah, there we go. There we go. The composition finally starting to hang together, I think. That was a big element when I got that light up there. So as you can tell, I'm being really honest with you guys here, unlike, again, I love Bob Ross, but he didn't take any chances on his program because he had every painting, he had it done ahead of time, and he was looking at it off camera as he worked, and I don't fault him for that. But that is not what I'm doing. I'm actually doing real art, real painting in front of you, making real decisions, and possibly making real bad decisions. So, you know, a little bit more risky. But I think that decision to make this barn roof a light element was the right one. Okay, just about ready for my next break. I need this to dry. Again, I'll pick up a heat gun and hit it real quickly to get it dry. And then, yes, I will be proceeding to oils. Okay, I think I'll stop right there. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in just... Welcome back. Thank you for watching. Hey, Renee, nice to have you on board. Thank you for the comment about the barbed wire. Yeah, we'll be doing more of that. Okay, I'm done with the acrylics. Let me see if I can count real quickly for a review for those who've missed it. The first thing I did was a big, mostly orange, a little bit of red, a little bit of purple abstract swoosh. Then I did some drawing with brushes, then drawing with pencils. Then I waited for it to dry. Then I did a little bit of blue. So that's layer 4, that's right. Then white, then more color, yellow, orange, red really, and then more white, and then dark details of white. So far, 9 layers. This is layer number 10. And while you were gone, this last moment, I stood back and looked at my painting and said, wait, that ain't right. So I modified this building. I had a building that was like 2 stories tall, but it was all one face, and it was out of stupid, just made a mistake. So I fixed it in acrylics real quickly, and I'm ready to proceed now. That's the lesson there is take a minute to stand back and look at your painting so you see the whole picture. Or take a picture with your phone, because then it's on a little screen and you can see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm ready to do a glazes, any colors I want over the whole thing. And I have a feeling that the main color I want is actually, so this may be the determining factor. Is this going to be a warm snow scene or a cool snow scene? And it looks like it's going to be, yes, warm. Not quite this warm, but still warm-ish. This is oxide red, a very, very sweet brown color. Don't be confused by the name. Yellow ochre is not yellow. English red, or what's the other name for English red? Is not red, it's brown. And I'm saying that only for you beginners. Oxide red is brown. Yellow ochre is brown. English red, or red light, that's the other name for it. Red light is not red, it's not light, either one. It's a dark reddish brown. Don't be fooled. These are traditional names or names of the pigment, but they don't necessarily match normal English words like red. Okay, so I'm doing brown over all of that. Now, I'm going to just, without cleaning my brush, just pick up pure liquid. And again, for those of you who wonder what it is I'm using, can you see that? Liquid Original. Usually it comes in a bottle like this. It's my favorite oil medium, even though it's a little bit odoriferous, a little bit smelly. It's still the best I've found for my purposes. So up until just a minute ago then, much of this canvas down here at the bottom was original pure white, just the color of the white gesso. Now I've put just a very faint glaze, oil glaze on top of it. So I'll probably add some other colors to that, but that might be all I do down there. We'll see. Okay, now, so I've done, need more liquid. Hang on here a second. I've done oxide red over the whole thing. I'm actually going to do some phthalo blue. And if I remember right, the phthalo I have on my canvas right now, on my palette, I'm hoping I'm remembering, is a cheap phthalo. If not, yeah, it is. If not, I was going to say I'm in deep trouble because I just put 10 times more on my brushes than is needed. So there you go. Sometimes, by the way, I've said this before, I would recommend that you not follow the snob movement. I mean, I don't think it's anything new. It's been around forever, I'm sure. But there's some artists and some teachers that really pride themselves in only using the best. And pride is the word. Pride themselves in only using the best. First of all, some people can't afford the best. So come on, get off your arrogant something. There's some people that can't afford the best. So, but it's a point of pride, and that it's a bad kind of pride. Anyway, plus there are some very fine paints in the world that are student grade. Now you want to watch out for archival. You want to watch out that anything you use, it won't fade or disappear. That is very true. But besides that, there are some paints in the world that are student grade that you can get used to, again, as long as they're archival, And they work perfectly well. In fact, sometimes you might like the way they behave better than the way a professional grade paint behaves. And I want to say to you, go for it, man. Don't let any art snobs shame you. I mean, that's the thing I'm against. It's just this shaming thing. Oh, I only use the best. Of course, then there's the crowd that they are so good. I mean, it's hard to believe how good they are that they can't even buy paints. They have to make their own. Now, if you get a kick out of making your own paints, that's great. That's wonderful. Good for you. Make your own paints. But what I don't like is the arrogance that sometimes, like, there's no paint that's good enough for me. That's just preposterous. You can't make a paint as good as, a good paint. I don't think as good as you. Anyway, I digress. I'll get off that high horse. Not quickly enough for some of you, I understand. I hope I'm not a snob, honestly. Sometimes I joke about me being like a this or that, but I hope I'm really not a snob, and if I could encourage other people not to follow that path in life, that'd be good. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, needs a little bit of orange. Now, yeah, I'm going to put these brushes down. I was thinking of using the same brushes, dirty brushes, but I'm not. I think I'm going to pick up some clean brushes. And in a sense, I want to go back and pick up, re-echo the very first marks that I made on this canvas. And that brush is too small. By reintroducing some orange. So now I've picked up some oxide red and some yellow and some red. I don't even want to tell you what colors they are, what brand. I thought about it and said, nah, that'll just get people thinking they should use that color. Just use whatever color you want that gets the job done. Use whatever brand you want that gets the job done. There, that's a little better. That's a little bit of nice. Even a little bit more with red in it. Yeah. Now the next thing I'm going to do after these multiple colors of glaze is rag. Is going to lift up. Going to pick up a rag and lift out colors. But that will come in a few minutes after I get the glaze as dark as I want it. I'm hoping that looks better on your monitor than it does on mine. Let me zoom in and see if I can get the camera to auto adjust that color just a little bit better. Okay, so it's definitely a warm snow scene. There you go. I'm glad I mentioned that at the beginning, that a lot of snow scenes are actually warm, even though we would typically think of them as being cool. Okay, do I have enough red down here in the mid area? No, I'm trying to force myself to be bold, force myself to be brave. When you're lacking in courage, paint with your other hand. My right hand is going, I don't know about this, I don't know about this. My left hand is, get out of here, let me show you how it's done. We're not worried about stuff. That's the way your left hand, unless you're left-handed, that's the way your other hand talks. It doesn't have nearly as much to lose, so It has more courage than your dominant hand. I'm making all this up, by the way. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounded good, didn't it? It seems like there's some truth to it. Again, a little bit more of that initial blitz of color I did way down here at the bottom. Now I need a clean brush all of a sudden. Clean-ish, I should say. Okay, this is called scumbling, by the way, when you're intentionally diminishing, or as I like to say, intentionally obfuscating texture. Many of you don't think you've ever obfuscated intentionally in your life, so that's the point. You shouldn't. Obfuscating texture is not that common an activity. That's what I'd like you to think. So therefore, brushy, 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 like I was just doing, should not be your default stroke. And I say that because most students, their default stroke is, in fact, brushy, brushy, brushy. Okay, let's do some rag painting. And after that, I think I'm going to take a real short break. Now, so I'm thinking here, what do I want light? And I'm thinking carefully. Okay, for sure, I want this part of the face of this building here, light. And part of that, the roof there. Okay? I want part of the silo here. Part of this, the blue sky here. I would like you to get the feeling like, oh, you do this part delicately. You don't rush in. Rush in where, angels fear to tread. Well, you better fear a little bit too. Be a little bit careful. I mean, you can always paint it back on, of course, but if you want, you're painting with a rag here. And all the rules that apply to painting with a brush apply to painting with a rag. That you want to make interesting marks. You want to leave interesting marks. I guess I was leaving this roof, reserving judgment on how much do I take off there. And I finally decided, yeah, I guess. Yeah, and same thing on this roof. Okay, I want to stand way back. You can't see me, but I'm 15 feet away from the painting. Need to cut into that edge a little bit, and then I think also cut in down here. Want that light edge to go off the edge of the canvas there. And here. That's a surprise. But I think that's correct. Okay. So let me talk about what comes next. One of two things happens next. Either I draw with a brush or I draw with pencils. Either pencils first, then brush, or brush first, then pencil. Let me see if I can make up my mind. And it's very intuitive. I don't know why I go which way. Today, pencils first. Okay, and I think I can continue. I don't think I need to take a break after all. So, but I am going to lower down my painting a little bit so I can draw up here at the top without reaching quite so high over my head. Fancy schmancy easel here with electric motor on it. You do not need fancy easels to do good painting, by the way. I just happen to be blessed with easels. They did not come to me in the usual way. Okay, once again, this is the second time I've used pencils. Very, very typical. It's sometimes I do pencils yet a third time in a painting, but we'll see. A little bit unusual, but it does happen sometimes. The purpose of the pencil mainly is to add an interesting scratchy texture in juxtaposition to the what I call the smooshy texture of the paint, right? Paint brushes, smooshy, pencils, scratchy, and that is their main purpose. The main purpose is not realism or similitude, although it does add to the similitude in a funny little ways. I think I want this light. Yep. Very unconventional to use pencils in a painting. So if you think that's weird, why is he's using pencil in an oil painting? That would be the right question. That would be the right tone of voice. Yes, I am. And yes, I know that it's unusual. I may grow out of it someday. I've been doing it about a year and a half now. And someday I might go, that was stupid. But that day hasn't come yet, so I still think it looks kind of cool. By the way, early on I talked about painting this particular scene being a good clinic for how to paint trees, and the main word that I gave for it several minutes ago was layers, stages, and so I just did pencil on there. That's at least the 9th layer that I've done on those trees. So just in case you're counting or want to count, it's about 9 layers and at least 2, probably 3 more layers to go, which would mean a total of 10. Or yeah, my math isn't so good, is it? 9 plus 3, that would be 12. At least 12 layers. No, at least 11, maybe as many as 12 or 13 layers. Okay, a little bit hint impressions of grass. These marks that I'm making right now have nothing to do with similitude. They are simply art marks, because the painting looks better with those marks on them. Okay, done with the pencil. Now, next step is drawing with dark, transparent colors. So at this point is when I want anything that needs to be darker. Now's the last chance to do it. Unless, of course, I cheat, which I'm always free to cheat if I want. But following my technique, if you will, the book version of the way Dan Nelson paints, this layer is the last layer of drawing with dark stuff, dark paint in this case. And I want at the end of this stage, I would like all of my dark areas to be as dark as they need to be. I don't want to look at it in a little while and go, oh, rats, I need to add some dark values. That does happen, in which case I add dark values. But the goal for me is to get those darks in right now. And again, I'm looking at my reference quite a bit, looking for ideas, looking for things that my mind wouldn't do on its own. I say this often, I haven't said it yet today, but every time I'm drawing the horse again for I think the fifth time, and every time I draw, so to speak, quote unquote, draw, uh, I do not trust the drawings that I've done previously. I edit them, I make adjustments to the drawings that I did previously. That is, by the way, I think one of the biggest differences between a very experienced painter and a beginner. A beginner tends to put marks down. I've seen this happen literally hundreds of times. A beginner tends to put marks down and then believes them, trusts them, rests on them, copies them, believes they are correct, so to speak. And a better painter, I don't want to insult anybody, so I don't want to say a good painter, but painters that are more mature do put marks down, but then in subsequent layers, they don't believe or trust or rely on those marks. Instead, they edit them and make them more accurate than they were originally. And that goes for every single step of the painting process up until the very last step, which is light opaque highlights. At that time, of course, I make my final judgment about where any mark should go. So by the time I'm finished, that horse will have been drawn 7 or 8 times. Not quite as many times as the tree has been drawn, if you're keeping score. One thing I didn't do a minute ago when I finished the glaze is I didn't do any scratching. I reminded myself of that just a second ago when I scratched up there. So I might come back and do some scratching. We'll see. Oh, there's this one wonderful tree that comes at an extreme angle, and I don't have it drawn in very well, so let me try to rectify that. I think, and I'm saying this to my embarrassment, shame, I don't really mean that literally, but to the pain of growing as an artist is when you see something that you could have, would have, should have done better. That's painful. You need to have that in order to get better as an artist, but yet in between those moments you have to have a lot of encouragement. That's the formula for progress. Little bit of, oh rats, I should have done that different, and a whole lot of, dang, I did pretty good. That's how you make progress, I believe, as an artist. So one of my recent, oh, dang, I should have done that better, is I've looked at artists that I admire greatly, like Tibor Nagy, Jeremy Mann, and so on and so forth. Some of these people that I've mentioned periodically, maybe too often. There are a lot of artists I think are great. I just don't try to remember more names. As I look at their work, I go, wow, you know what? This person, that person, they paid more attention to their reference than I do. They looked more carefully. They looked with a more discerning or critical eye at blank, at the trees than I do. See, we tend to get lazy. After a certain point, we say, that's close enough. I do this. Everybody does this. At a certain point, you say, oh, dang, I'm tired of working that hard trying to capture similitude. So I just say, the rest of it, I'll just wing it. And I have discerned lately, I've been re-impressed that the artists that I really admire, their, oh dang, I'm going to wing it point is much later than mine. Or I shouldn't say much perhaps, but considerably, noticeably later than mine. I should keep my nose to the grindstone, looking carefully at my reference longer than I want to. There you go. That's about the best I've ever said that. Keep looking at your reference longer and harder than you want to. Left to our own devices, we will all wig out, we'll all lazy out at some point and say, oh, that's close enough, and then just wing it from there. And that's, I think, one of the biggest differences between the really good paintings and the not so good paintings. There you go. That was a good lesson right there. Someone needed to hear that. Now, I want to do just a little bit of grassy stuff. I did some with the pencils. Now let's do some with the dark color. I can make it quite a bit browner, I think. Not much though. I'm not going to try to paint all this grass. I'll just let our eyes turn that into grass. But I need to give it just enough representation that our brain sees all this as grass. Now all of this, of course, everything I'm doing, up until the final 2 layers, everything I'm doing is called underpainting. The next to last layer is fuzz layer, and the last layer is light opaque highlights. And again, the fuzz layer is something that I've been doing only for the last 7 months as I grow. And I'll describe that more as I get to that point. That comes up next, by the way. Okay, so this is third from the last layer right now. Is dark details. Okay, I'm going to clean these brushes. I'm going to take a real quick break here. I'll be back in a little bit. The next layer is fuzz layer. Real easy to describe. Well, 4 characteristics of the fuzz layer. New to me in the last 7 months. You could call it atmospheric perspective, but it's soft edges, translucent, opaque paint applied very thinly so you can see through it. Soft, translucent, glow, maybe 3 words. Oh, and local color. Anything. So for instance, I want to do some blue up here in the sky, but I don't want a real hard edge blue, so I'll do some of that in this next fuzz layer. Local color. So local color, translucent, soft edges, and glow. Okay, good enough. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Hello, Shanna. What are the pencils? Thank you for asking that. I hope you're still watching. The pencils they're made by Jerry's Artorama, which is a nationwide art distributor, made in China for them, and they're called Jumbo Jet Black. Shanna, I hope you're still watching. The manager here at the store manager here in Raleigh told me they were essentially like the Conti crayon, a black Conti crayon in a pencil form. Although I tried Conti crayon, didn't find they behaved quite the same. I have used sometimes a grease pencil, China marker, and that works pretty well too. I like the way they behave. I like the way these pencils interact both with acrylics and oil. They interact differently, but they interact predictably with both, and it's quite nice. Good, Jana, glad you're still here. Okay, before I get started, I'm ready to do the last 2 layers, and by the way, I have progressed to my sit-down, sitting on a stool stance. Hopes that I'll be able to focus and stick with this better than if I'm standing up and my legs are getting tired. But before I begin, I want to give you an earthquake. Forgive me. But I want to give you real up close why I like, let me tilt down so we don't get glare, why I like my approach to painting. And the answer is all of this subtle, intricate, fascinating texture that, as I like to say, you can't make this stuff up. It just happens. Of course, it's the magic of transparency is a lot of it, but besides the transparency, the energetic, spontaneous, half out of control manner in which I paint is what creates that fascinating texture, fascinating color, fascinating everything. You can't do this on purpose. It would take eons of time with a little one-haired brush to intricately do all that stuff. Years ago, one of my breakable laws of painting, years ago it dawned on me, and when I say dawned, I mean in the core of my being, a light bulb came on and I got it. I realized the way I put it back then is, I said, the best painting paint on my glasses. The best painting happens when you're trying hard to do something else. Now, I don't mean the best painting happens while you're making a bologna sandwich. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is while you're trying to paint on your painting, your brush does something, the paint does something you didn't expect or predict or plan, and all of a sudden you look and go, whoa, that's beautiful. That's what I mean. The best painting happens when you're trying hard to do something else. Once I realized that, and that reality began to boil down, seep down deep into my being, that I thought, well, if that's true, which I believe it is, still believe it is, then that means I ought to make my whole painting nothing but happy accidents, to use Bob Ross's term. And that mindset, in fact, informs the way I paint. I paint so that happy accidents are happening nonstop. Now, these last two stages are the tighten up stages. The last stage, light opaque highlights, which I'll start in a few minutes. The last stage is the fix all the mistakes, fix anything I don't like stage, and it's the slowest. I cover up very little of the canvas, but the little that I cover up is very important. I would also like you, especially if you're a beginner oil painter, to look at this canvas the way it is right now and to understand that there is no white oil paint on this canvas. Now, I, like most oil painters, I use more white than everything else, all in this last layer. But right now, there's no white in there. And look, the painting is 85 or 90% finished as is. So again, just to give you some idea, especially if you're emulating me in any way whatsoever, to recognize how the step by step, up, especially the acrylics, up to this point, have got me so close to my final resting place, my final finishing point, without using any white oil. Okay, let's get started. So what I'm going to do right now then is the fuzz layer. I could call it the glow layer, the translucent layer, but I usually call it the fuzz layer. I'm mixing up now some titanium white, and oh, by the way, for the last 5 years or so, almost all I ever buy when I buy titanium is alkyd, fast dry titanium, so that I can, if I want to, so that I can do impasto, thick painting, and not have to wait for it. I remember several years ago, I did a painting and had some real thick white at the end, or nearly white, and it literally took 6 months for the painting to dry. I don't mean cure, I mean just to dry so I could carry it safely out of the house into a gallery. So I learned my lesson very soon. I'm not doing that again. Okay, so here we go. Let me zoom in a little bit. This is the fuzz layer, and I'm starting out this time with sky. And by the way, the difference between the fuzz layer and the final layer is very subtle, and very often when I'm doing the fuzz layer, I'll accidentally slip over into the final layer. The final layer is light opaque highlights, opaque being a key word, and light, of course, and tending toward hard edges. The difference between this layer and the last layer is this layer I'm trying to stay soft edged, and I have partly Richard Schmid to thank for that. I don't remember, I majored in art, of course, in the middle of the last millennium. It's not quite true, but you know what I mean, being funny. I majored in art, and I don't remember anybody ever using the term edge control. In fact, Richard Schmid is the first person I ever remember. Now, maybe my professor said it and I missed it, but I don't think so. I don't think any of them ever said. We talked about brush strokes. We talked about maybe hard and soft edges. I don't remember talking about that. But anyway, in the last several years now, I hear everybody talking about edge control. And it may in fact be Richard Schmid's contribution. I'm not sure. I don't know. Don't know enough to make that assertion. But that's where I heard it first. And then, you know how it goes. Once you hear something, then it seems like you start hearing it everywhere else. There's a name for that principle, that dynamic. I forget what the name of it is. Anyway, it is that mindset, the edge control thinking, is largely responsible for me inserting this fuzz layer into my repertoire, because I'm trying to intentionally be soft here. Now see those two strokes right there, those are not soft, those are hard, but I just fuzzed them up for you. I've got one more layer to go after this, and that one is the hard edge. Am I, yeah, you can see where I am, can't you? And if you haven't heard me say it, you will if you watch me long. Let me say it again right now. And this is a hard lesson that I've learned in the last couple of years, that it is really easy for a painting to have too many hard edges. Now I know, I mean, here I'm talking I'm talking in this world, the planet that I try to paint on, which is the planet of painterly painting. You know, from Frans Hals, a Rembrandt, on down to today. The people who do, my favorite description actually is abstract realism, where we acknowledge without hesitation that the abstract elements of the paint on the canvas are more important than the realistic image. Okay, so back to in this world, the world that I paint in, and many of you do too, you want to paint in, it's real easy for a painting to have too many hard edges, almost impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges. I usually say it the other way around. Let me do it the other way around. Almost impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges. Very, very easy for a painting to have too many hard edges. Okay, so if you really embrace that, then how are you going to paint? You're going to paint soft, 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 soft. Oh, and every once in a while, there's a hard edge. And I think that's a pretty good description of some of the painters that I admire most. Tibor Nagy, Richard Schmid, who I've already mentioned today, John Carlson, so this layer right here is intentional soft edges, because up until a couple years ago, that description fit me perfectly. Too many hard edges. I wish somebody had slapped me about 15 years ago. Well, it slapped me this way. They would have said, Dan, you are a really good painter. Man, you've got some nice stuff. That is great. You're fantastic. But here's what I think. I think your paintings might be even better if they had more soft edges and fewer hard edges. Now, finding somebody who can say that to you in your career, something like that, is priceless. So if I can be that voice for you, great. Of course, I'm not looking at your work. So, hey, speaking of looking at your work, I want to tell you where something that's coming up in the not too distant future, and that is I am offering to look at your work. I'm going to start an online painters forum. I've been leading a painters forum here in Raleigh, North Carolina for over 10 years and consider it one of the most valuable things to my painting skill, my painting career. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to gather a small group, like anywhere from 4 to probably 8 live bodies in a room here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we are going to share each other's paintings. I'm going to be the teacher. I'm going to be the boss man. But I'm going to demonstrate for them, and then they're going to share their paintings with me, and and so on. And those of you who live elsewhere, for a modest price, you'll be able to Skype in, or I don't know what the technology will be, but you'll be able to join our group, and you will show us your paintings. You'll email us the paintings. We might even print out a small version of it so we can look at a hard copy. And we not just me, but all of us. That's what I think is one of the beauties of a painters forum, a painters group, is it's not one person being the know-it-all smarty pants. One man is the paint god, and everybody else are idiots. I don't like that model, which is that's what art classes are. I don't like that model. I like it better when there's give and take and even room for disagreement. I mean, I'll be the leader. I make no qualms about that, but I will be welcoming other people's input. And I don't know when we're going to start that, but I need to get the technology. Need to get help from people getting up and running. So, if that sounds good to you, stay tuned. You'll actually be able to join a real live painters group and participate not just with one person, me, looking at your paintings, but with others as well. I've discovered when you're in a painters group like that, people say things like when your painting is on the easel and you're talking about your painting, people will say things and you just smile and nod, and inside you go, "Yeah, that ain't it," and that's all right. But then somebody, somewhere, sometimes somebody will say, "Da da 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 da," and they'll say it, and a light bulb will go crashing on in your head. You go, "Eureka! That is it. That's what I'm looking for." That is so valuable, and that's the experience that I want you guys to have. And I think it'll be more valuable if it comes from a group, even a small group, than just from me. So there'll be give and take. I'm very excited about this. I've been years wondering, what is it that I want to sell online? What is it that is it classes, teaching, whatever? And I finally decided this is it. So it's sort of like I'm the teacher, but I'll be sharing my platform with other artists who are on the same journey that we're all on. Okay, enough of the commercial. I'm excited about that. Stay tuned for more. I've still got pale blue on my brushes. I think I'm going to just make it a little bit paler, that is, mix more white with it, and tackle. Now, wait a minute. I'm getting over into the last layer, so let me pause there a little bit. I'm not sure I need to do glow right there. And I become aware at this stage of the painting process, this is where my painting now goes slow. Up until now, I look like I paint at breakneck speed, don't I? Like, man, he just paints like crazy. Yeah, but not now. At this stage, I do not paint like crazy. I paint pretty carefully and pretty slowly. And that means it can be pretty boring for those of you who are watching. So I'll pause here in a little while, paint for a while on my own, then bring you back in. At the moment, I'm trying to mix up a very slight beige tan color. Okay, before I go then, let me tell you how I'm going to build up this snow color in particular. Snow color, do you like that word? And the answer is little by little by little from this like mid-tone, the way it is right now, is very much a medium, like on a scale of 1 to 10, that for me that would be about a 7. To give you an idea, here's a piece of a napkin, that's a 10, right? So this is maybe an 8. And I'm going to build up, get lighter and lighter and lighter, little step by step by step, small step by small step. And right now I'm still wanting to do soft local color. Okay, this is a good place for me to pause though. Pause you guys. I'll keep painting for a while because this is getting too tedious for you to watch, I believe. And I'll bring you back in just a little bit. Thanks so much for watching again. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Tell your artist. Hello, Grimmick from Morocco. Good to have you on board. Welcome back, everybody. So here I am down to the last final phase stage of the painting. This is the only stage of the painting that you could truly call not underpainting. We don't use the term overpainting, but if it's not underpainting, I think that's what you've got to call it. So I'm finally beginning the overpainting stage. Now, you're not going to watch me. This last stage would take me an hour and a half probably if I just stuck with it, which would make this broadcast way too long. So I'm just going to let you watch me till you get bored. The last stage, light opaque highlights. Light, the painting's as essentially as dark as it's going to get. Everything from now on makes it lighter. Light, opaque, that's a switch. Everything up till now has been either transparent or the last stage, the fuzz layer, was translucent, but almost everything's transparent. Now I do opaque. And highlights, of course. So the things that really, and things, sharp edges, hard edges, details, focal points. When it comes to the last stage, where do you start? There are 4 options. Traditional, you start with the furthermost object, which in a landscape is always the sky. You work like a traditional oil painter. That's one option. Start with the sky and work forward. Option number 2 is start at the focal point and work outward. Option number 3, start at the lightest, brightest, whitest thing, the lightest thing in the painting, and work down from there. And number 4, a little bit harder to describe, but it's start with local color. I don't think I need to do that here. Usually that if you've gotten this far in the painting and there's some major element that just isn't the right color yet and you don't know where to go until that's the correct color, that's when you do that. And I actually do that, not terribly infrequently, but I don't think I need to do that today. So I'm going to start, I'm trying to find a brush. I'm going to start focal point. The reason for that, the rationale behind that is start, which is going to be not necessarily the horse, but right around the horse. Here, 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 and a little bit here. So in this area right there is a focal point. Get that as sharp as I want it to be, and then firmly plant in my mind, okay, that is the star of the show. That area, that's the leading actor. Everything else is support to that. And so that's often a good reason to start with a focal point. And I think that's what I'm going to do today. I'm still looking for the right brush. I'm starting with fairly small brushes, and so I'm going to mix up some pale yellow ochre and white, a little bit of oxide red, so a very dull, light-colored beige color. And let me give you one more instruction. Now, if you're a traditional oil painter, this applies to you all the time. If you're a traditional oil painter, that means you essentially paint in opaque colors from the get-go. So this applies to you if you're one of those. If you're like me and you only are doing the opaque at the very end, then this very important principle kicks in. Are you ready for this? Okay, you do, the universal principle is darks first, lights last. And if you just extrapolate that principle out, then you would get the impression that as you paint, in opaque paints in particular, you get lighter and lighter and lighter the further you go, as you progress in your painting. That is exactly correct. I believe that is the right way to paint. You get lighter and lighter and lighter the further you go. I've got a little piece of lint or something that I don't like the looks of, right here under this horse's leg. Let me get that out of the way. There you go. So if you do darks first, lights last, then in essence, you paint from light to lighter to lighter. And that is correct. That means, like right now I'm putting down this fairly pale, light, beige tan color. Yellow ochre, oxide red, and titanium white mixed together. And that means that I'm going to come back in a few minutes and do a color that is slightly lighter than this, and do it on top of what I just did. And that is correct. It's almost always a good idea in painting to, I use the word come back shortly after doing something, to come back shortly thereafter and do a lighter, slightly lighter version of what you just put down. Just do a slightly lighter version on top of it. Here and there, not covering it up, of course, but just here and there in bits. So you'll see me do that in a few minutes. So again, the color I'm putting here is the same color I put there. By the way, that's one of the indications that you need to do this principle of come back and hit it again with a slightly lighter color, because you don't want the same color here and there and here and there all over your painting. Now that sounds contrary to another principle that is true, that if you have one color somewhere in your painting, you want it somewhere else as well. That is true, but that's not the same as this. Here I'm talking about the exact same color. You don't want the exact same color painted willy-nilly all over your painting, all over your canvas. No, 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 that gets redundant and boring. The bigger principle, like there's a little bit of red right there, way on the edge, and there's a little bit of purple right there. If I've got some purple there, I want it somewhere else, where it turns out I have red there and purple there, and that satisfies that broader principle. What I'm talking about right now is the exact color that I have mixed up on my brushes right now. Our eyes can discern millions of colors, and if we see this exact color here and there and here and there, it's distasteful to us. So the remedy is to come back with a slightly lighter. Now some of you might be saying, well, could you do a slightly darker version? The answer is an absolute emphatic no. No, 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 no. In the world of opaque paintings, that's where I am right now. And if you're a traditional oil painter, your whole world is opaque painting, right? But if you're painting in the realm of opaque, the answer is always light paint on top of dark. The human eye, in other words, I'm saying this is not a matter of opinion or taste, I'm saying it's universal. The human eye, and of course by that I mean the visual center of the brain, not literally the eye, but it's most convenient to call it the eye. The human eye does not like to see dark paint on top of light paint. I've gone over this so many times that I don't want to go over the whole thing again right now, so I won't. But you can find me, if you follow me very long, you'll hear me explaining why and what to do in the moments when you feel like you have to do dark paint on top of light, because of course there are many times you do have to. So there's a right way to do it. Anyway, here you see, and I hope you can see what I'm doing. Let me zoom back in. Hope you can see what I'm doing here. I've mixed up a slightly lighter color. See, I painted this a few minutes ago, then I mixed this up. Slightly lighter, brighter, whiter color, the same shade, same exact color, just slightly lighter, and hitting it here and there. Same thing over here. Ooh, something just entered my mind, a visual thing that is not indicated or reflected in the photograph at all. So here I'm painting out of my head, okay? In just a moment I'm going to be painting out of my head, I think for obvious reasons, because all of a sudden my imagination saw something that is better than the photograph. So of course you're allowed to improve. I mean, that's the whole point, right? And you know as well as I do, when somebody says, oh, your painting looks just like a photograph, that's because they don't know any better. So, you know, be easy on them, but of course that's a silly thing to say. We certainly do not want our paintings to look like a photograph. But I just realized that if there's this much light, let me show you, here's the photograph I'm working from, see? So there's quite a bit of light hitting the barn, but not as much as I've got. I've exaggerated, of course, which is my prerogative. But if there's this much light hitting the barn, then there should be some light reflected back on the shadow side of the silo. Absolutely, there should be. Let me see if I can get you guys any closer here. Does that help any? Yeah, a little bit. Okay, so this is not in the photograph at all. This is me painting out of my head, because I think it'll make the painting better. By the way, I'll give you this little bit of information, you artists. And if anybody ever says, well, why did you do that? And first of all, it's a little bit smart alecky, but in a way it's not. It's actually very philosophical. The answer to the question, any question, when you're doing a painting, and somebody would say to you, well, why did you do that? In a sense, the only answer is because I thought it would make a better painting. That is the answer to that question, because I thought it would make the painting better. Now I've got this color mixed up on my brush. I'm just going to go ahead and use it elsewhere because it's a time saver. Let me see. I might be missing some of your comments here. Let me see if I can, whoops, adjust my screen. Okay. This might be a nice color for a little bit of a highlight on the haunches of that horse. I do not want to do much with this horse. It's almost finished as it is. Of course, I don't want it to be a painting of a horse. The horse is quite important, but I don't want its importance to be in its rendering or its realism. Its mere presence is important enough. I don't want people getting hung up on the rendering of the horse. I think that's all right. I might be all done. I may come back and do more on that. I'm not sure. But I feel like I'm probably very close to finished, if not completely finished, on that horse. Okay, let me go back where I was, which is the shadow of the silo on the side of this barn. Do you see this? I think I'm zoomed in as far as I can go. This big dark line. I don't remember when I did it or why I did it. Doesn't matter. But it's too big and it's too dark. But this is very typical of the way I paint. You put down a big, bold mark in any one of the underpainting stages, and then in the overpainting stage, you don't obliterate it, but if you don't like it, you diminish it. So I've just split it in half. Do you see that? And so now I've got a very sweet little double dark line there. Just looks like some detail in the barn. If that's there, though, I feel like there should be something here. Okay. Making this up now. You know what? I'm going to jump way out and do something very different just for 1 second, because I want to see what this is going to look like. I think it's going to look good. And again, this is focal point. I'm actually picking up a fine sable brush, and I want to do some snow on this branch right here. Now, I may not do this much detailed snow on any other branch in the whole painting. I might, but I might not. I don't know. And of course, if I don't like this, I'll come back and carefully take it off later. This would be a good place for a palette knife as well. Where do I want it? There, yeah. Okay, yeah, good enough. And then a little bit right here. I'm going to leave that for now. I just wanted to get a little bit of that kind of detail blocked in early on to see if, if that's the way I'm going to go with that. So I'm maybe finished with this face of the barn, maybe, the horse. Okay, let's continue then. Let's move on down to the snow here again, because this is the focal point. Oh, you know what? Hang on. Sorry. Well, I've still got this dull beige. Let me mix that up again before I get these brushes cleaner, whiter than this. Let's do the face of this little shed here, which again is, I think, very much in the bullseye of this painting. I've been feeling that, even though it's not indicated until now. I've been feeling that from the get-go, that the light bit of the shed, and it is in the photograph, I've moved it slightly, but it's definitely an element that's in the photograph, so it's not something I just made up. The sun hitting this little bit of this shed, outbuilding, I feel like is pretty important. So, and it's got a tree in front of it. It's got a window in the middle of it. It's got shadows on it. That might be enough, although that's all done the same color. You with me? So what am I going to do? I'm going to pick up some titanium white with these dirty brushes, mix up a color that's slightly lighter than what I just put down. Again, I hope you're getting this. It's a real simple principle, and will probably improve your paintings considerably. Anytime you put down a certain amount, a bunch, an appreciable amount of a certain light color. Are you with me? You put down a certain amount of light color, it almost always is a good idea. And as I like to say, there's not that many things in painting you can say almost always. That's pretty gutsy thing to say. But it almost always is a good idea to come and do some lighter stuff right on top of it, which is what I've done there. Okay, now I'm going to wipe off these brushes. Let's zoom out just to give your eyes a break here. And wipe off. Not clean like with Turpenoid or Gamsol, which I think is what I've got in my bucket right now, but just clean enough. So I mix them up with titanium white. Let's do some snow. Finally, this is a snow scene, and I feel like this is almost the first time that I'm actually going to be painting, you know, what could pass as snow white in the entire painting process. This is my first strokes of traditional snow color. Slow snow lightness, snow whiteness. Sounds like I'm talking about a fairy tale, doesn't it? But believe it or not, I'm just trying to talk about painting. Okay, let me zoom back in here so you can hopefully see what I'm doing. This is where most students, emerging artists, would make a huge mistake. Whenever I teach my technique, I go through fits trying to communicate to my students this principle right here, because left, I'm just going to say it as if you're one of these, left to your own devices, especially after you've done all this new kind of stuff, painting with all my ridiculous layers of transparent that seems so strange to you. When you finally get to this point, you go, oh, thank God, now I can paint like I know how to paint. And what students do is they break out their opaque paint and they plaster their entire painting with traditional oil painting. And then as they walk out of the classroom, they have every reason in the world to ask, well, why did we do all that crazy stuff, you know, for the first 6 hours of the class? Well, the reason is because you weren't supposed to plaster. So I hope you see what I'm doing here. I'm allowing as much as possible. I want the beautiful underpainting. Again, all of this stuff that is the product, that is the result of, as you saw, layers and layers and layers and layers of transparent, translucent, and a little bit of opaque white paint has created this beautiful patina that you cannot replicate on purpose. You have to just have a process that creates it. You do not want to cover that up. So as you can see, I've got just little dots of light here. Let's Now, normally, I would not do what I'm about to do next, but in order to teach, here's what I'm going to do. So as you can see, I had whatever, this is just slightly off-white. I did all of these little bits. You with me, right? Okay. I'm going to follow the same principle again. So I'm over here at my palette. Can you see my palette? Hang on, you can. Just picking up titanium white. You can almost see it. My sleeve's in the way, isn't it? Picking up titanium white with just, now my brushes are still dirty, so it's almost perfectly titanium. Almost pure white. With me? Go back in here now. Come on, auto adjust. There we go. And what am I going to do? Class, what am I going to do? That's right. I'm going to do slightly lighter on top of what I just did a few minutes ago. Here and there. Not over the whole thing, of course. Just little bits of even lighter light than what I did just a few minutes ago. I said a while ago that the human eye does not like seeing dark paint on top of light. And again, I hope to have my book out soon enough so you can read slowly. Then why and then what do you do? But the converse is also true. The human eye gets a kick out of seeing light paint on top of dark. So that's what we're doing now. I do wonder, and I reserve the right to undo this if I don't like it, but I wonder if a little bit of palette knife right here. Yeah, I think that's good. Go back to this branch up here. There we go. There we go. And then a branch going up that way. Yeah. I'm going to actually come back to the face of this building here. So I've got an even lighter color on my brushes than I had a while ago. This is the third time I've hit the face of this building with a light color, this being the lightest color so far. Okay, now I need to go back to a not quite so bright white. So I'm mixing up a little bit of yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is my favorite yellow for warming up white. I don't like going to like a cad yellow or even an Indian yellow is so yellow, but a yellow ochre added to white gives, to me, is my favorite way to warm up my titanium. Very rarely do I use pure titanium. Although, here's a funny thing, although with the advent of halogen lighting, no, I don't mean halogen, LED. Same thing is true with the halogens, by the way, but that's not what I meant to say. With the advent of LED lighting, which is often a very, very white light, you actually can use pure titanium white in a painting if you want. For instance, headlights of cars and so on. Street lights now are LEDs, so they actually are very, very white. Okay, I'm just about to the point where I'm just boring you guys to tears, so I'm going to sign off shortly. I'll finish the painting on my own time. I doubt that I'll bring you back in to watch more of it, although that would be a separate broadcast if I do. I will post this finished painting on my Facebook, which is Facebook Dan the Art Man, and I also will try to post it on right here on YouTube on the community tab. So you'll get if you follow me, you'll get a notice that I've put something up, and it should be this finished painting, which may be tomorrow before I post it. But I hope that's been helpful. Hope it's been fun. Hope it's been instructive. I'm going to give you an earthquake ride just one more time here so you can see this a little bit more up close. Come on. Okay, wait. There we go. So that's a little bit more what the painting looks like. I'm trying to take the glare off it for you. Yeah, how are we doing? Okay. Again, I enjoy your comments, and if you didn't leave a comment during the video, then by all means leave a comment later on. And I appreciate you watching, and let your friends, let your fellow artists know about me, especially if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, do I want you to let your artist friends know about it? Probably not. If you don't enjoy me, keep it to yourself. Anyway, it's been fun. I hope to be broadcasting again tomorrow, and I hope to see you then. Blame you for not wanting to. And then when it allows me to do it, I will hit the button that tells YouTube that this session has ended. Let me see if I can do that yet.